Hello, 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 and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I am your host. Every week, every Wednesday and Friday, I bring you interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds from all over the world. Today's guest is Karoline she is currently in Berlin, Germany, and Karoline is a prop maker, a costume maker, an art maker. She sculpture maker. She makes works of art and odds and ends for theater productions, for movies, for advertisement, and for other artists. And I know I'm leaving something out, but it was definitely amazing to get to talk with Karoline and kind of get into her world and learn how she got started and how she has turned this into such a successful business. So I'm excited to bring you Karoline's story today. Before we hop on in with Karoline, though, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Katie of Women of Woodworking, Kevin, Lefties, Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Jeremy Spees, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Sven, Dwarf Size Workshop, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Brandy, Studio Obey, Lee, The Rainbow Carver, and Ellen, Little Bear Furniture. Oh, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you also very much for your ongoing and continued support, helping me to produce 2 episodes a week every week. And if you want to get your name added to this list, you absolutely for sure can. And you get to watch and listen to me let my cats in. You for sure can. Just head on over to patreon.com/crafting a revolution, and you can sign up there and get your name added to the start of the list at the start of every podcast, twice a week, every week. All right, no further ado, here is Karoline. All right. Well, I do like to have guests on my podcast introduce themselves. So would you like to do that?
I can do that for sure. So my name is Karoline. I'm 33 years old. I'm currently located in Berlin, Germany. And I'm a full-time freelance prop maker, sculptor, costume maker, whatever the heck people want from me, I make. So
whatever keeps the lights on type of thing, or
yeah, whatever. I always tend to say whatever fills the plate. So but yeah, I've been doing that for like full-time job as a freelancer for 9 years now. So
oh wow. Yeah. So really how has this like pandemic time affected work as far as that's concerned? Because I would imagine props are generally for stuff that's happening like in person, right?
Yeah. It was kind of a weird one because I mean last year when everything like went downhill, I still had like one major deadline that I needed to reach, but so when everything was stopping here in Germany, I still had like 2 or 3 weeks of like, oh God, I need to finish this. I can't, like the streets are empty, the stores are closed. It felt very dystopian, but I was glad somehow that I could still go to the workshop and had like a task to finish, so that was nice. And then there was like a phase of I think 2 or 3 months where things like slowed down or were like postponed that had been scheduled. So it was a weird one because I had things confirmed and then they got pushed back, and I had a few weeks of like I don't know what's happening, but nothing too bad. So it was ramping up fairly quickly again, and I was actually happy to have sort of like a forced break for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. I could concentrate on like doing stuff at home or doing stuff for myself or just like cleaning the workshop.
Right. Right. All very important things.
Yeah.
So I want to start actually with a pretty big question, which is just to say, tell me your story. Like, where were you born? And, kind of growing up to like, how did you get into prop making?
Ooh, that's a big stretch.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm here for it. My listeners will be here for it.
So I was born in the eastern part of Germany when it was still divided, so in the former DDR. But quickly after the wall came down and blah blah blah, my parents decided to move into the western part of the country. So I actually sort of grew up there. I went there to school, and so in southwest Germany, it's 1 hour from Frankfurt. I think most people know Frankfurt because of the big airport, and kind of close to the French border. So that's where I more or less grew up, but I never felt really comfortable there. It's I don't know. It was just not my area, I think. And how I got into prop making was basically just the decision to be made after school, I guess. There comes a point at school, right, when you have to decide on what you want to do later. And I pretty much knew what I didn't want to do. And that was I didn't want to work in an office. I didn't want to do all the stuff that my friends or schoolmates were doing. I didn't want to study. Just because of, I think, money reasons, because my parents were not that rich, if you want to call it like that, to pay student loans and rent and stuff for me. And in my head, of course, it works if you work on the side, but somehow I didn't want that. I don't know. I was never very fond of I didn't like school too much because of several reasons. And so the idea of going to university and having a similar surrounding again was oh no, I don't want to do that. I just want to work and make money and go to another city. And so I found out about that particular job more or less by accident, because the town that I grew up in was very small, and my parents also were not that much into theaters or cultural stuff or art at all. So I never had a direct connection growing up.
No exposure to
that
world.
No, we never went to the theater or anything, or my parents are just not interested in art. That's not a thing. And but I always liked to draw and craft stuff in the garage, and so that was always a thing. I loved that, and I loved making costumes for myself of my favorite manga characters and stuff like that. So that was a pretty big deal as a teen for me. And but then I found out that, I mean, you can actually make money with that, and that's a proper job. So in Germany, we have this apprenticeship scheme where you have 3 years of training at a proper job site. And I applied for this apprenticeship all over Germany, at different theaters, and eventually got one in Berlin, and that's where I'm still at. So it was 3 years of part theory training and part practical training, but I was basically in the workshop every day of the opera, and there I was taught the basic skills of sculpting and prop making with various materials, also mold making and blah blah blah. It's a lot, but
it's a lot,
just to put it into a short summary of how that started.
Did you still do costumes in that, with that apprenticeship too? Were you still sewing as well?
No, we weren't taught sewing. I mean, I taught myself sewing because, again, my mom was also not into that, but I think I got my first sewing machine when I was like 10 or 11 or something, and just like crafting stuff for myself. I always loved that. So that was like something that just came out of myself. It's not like someone dragged me into it, but it was also tough because I could not ask anyone for help, or like I had to figure it out all by myself. But I mean, with the costumes, it's interesting because it's now a mix between the sculptural aspect and the sewing aspect, because now I mostly do like those like big elaborate animal costumes if I make any costumes. So it's partly sculpting and partly like the fabric work.
Yeah, right.
I love that. I really enjoy that.
So, I mean, how did you find, like, do you remember how you found out that this was a proper job, like that prop making was a proper job, something you could actually apprentice for and do?
Well, I mean, I knew that it was a proper job, but I always thought that it would be like you would come from other trainings or just like jump. I don't know how to call it in English, when you're not trained in a specialty, but you come. I mean,
like
you could
self-taught.
Self-taught, or you study sculpture or you study art, and then you find your way into the movie industry or something. So it's like not a direct path, but it's still valid, of course. But Germany is all about having something written on paper that you are trained in that. So it's like, okay, let's do that. Also, it was the best decision, because as an apprentice, you get like a minimum wage. So I could pay rent from that. It was not a lot, but I could actually like maintain myself.
You could become independent, like from the start, kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, I did, before I got the apprentice, I did about, I think, 9 months of like unpaid internships. So working on the side for like very, very low prices. Like, I don't know, I got like $5 an hour for working on at a bakery and stuff like that. So it's working a lot on that side and then doing the internship, so I could actually get into the apprenticeship. Yeah, that was the way to go. I'm glad that this is actually changing now, and I think people get paid nowadays for the internships, at least if they are like longer than a few weeks. So they have to be paid by the company, but back then it was a nightmare. But it was worth it. So yeah, I got that, and then after the apprenticeship, I immediately wanted to be a freelancer. I don't know. I just wanted to work and learn more, because the apprenticeship is only so much. It's like just a tiny part and just the basic skills, and yeah.
So, okay, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, what was it about going out on your own versus like looking to work for, like at the place you had just apprenticed for?
Well, I mean, the opportunity was not there. We tried to, we actually tried to get myself into like working there for another year or so, but it didn't work out. Like they couldn't hire anyone. So I was more or less like forced to look for something else. And I didn't want to be stuck in that environment anyways, like for a long time. So I don't know, it somehow it felt natural just to jump into the freelance thing. So I mean, it was tough, of course. I mean, you have to find customers and you have to take that step into the door. But I was, even during that apprenticeship, I was starting to like do some little side jobs to make connections with people. And Yeah, it's not like it was a complete. It worked from the beginning. That's not the case. But there were good times. There were bad times.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess share with me a little bit about those, I guess, early years of like, how do you find clients? And I mean, were you on social media right away? You said you've been freelancing for 9 years, so I don't think Instagram's been around that whole time. Trying to think of when it, yeah. I mean, so how were you finding clients for your work?
So the thing is that even back at the opera, they were always hiring freelancers for like 4 weeks or something when a bigger project came in. So for the first years, that was kind of a like safe place to go because they were, I knew that I could always, like not always, but I had some kind of safe spot there to reach out whenever I needed a job, and they were like, oh yeah, let's see what we can do for you, blah blah blah. So I would actually work at my old workplace, but like not permanently. It was
right,
like maybe 4 or 6 weeks in a row, and then that like 2 or 3 times a year or something. And as I said, I made a lot of connections due to like musicians and friends of mine who were like starting out as filmmakers or stuff. So I did a lot of unpaid work as well, just to get the name out and to get more references as well, because you need to establish a portfolio at some point.
Right.
So I was doing a lot of like free work just to fill up my portfolio, I guess. And then eventually, like one thing came to another. You do one job for one person, and then they recommend you to someone else, and yada yada. Yeah. Also, we are very lucky that we have like a big movie production studio close by. So I was working there from time to time. I mean, it's not the best like working environment, but it's good to make connections, and that also helped a lot. And yeah,
I guess is Berlin like Germany's Hollywood? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, is that where a lot of, if you're making German films, is it usually coming out of Berlin?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, we have like 3 or 4 big movie productions all over Germany. So, but one is near Berlin. I think that might even be the biggest one where like even the Hollywood stuff gets made. So
gotcha.
They recently had the co-production for the latest Matrix movie there, for example. So yeah, they are pretty big, I guess, but it's not it's not Hollywood now.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, I guess, a reference that would feel something.
Yeah, but I mean Berlin is a creative city, so I'm not limited to only theater or movies. There's also like a lot of advertisements that get shot here, or like a lot of artists that need stuff to be made.
Hey makers. So today's podcast episode is sponsored in part by Alicia Van Osdal, who is the owner of Basil Blue Design Company. Alicia is a maker of all things, really. Her focus is on beautiful craftsmanship through woodworking, repurposing, refinishing, art, and sculpture. Her background includes 30 years of graphic design, logos, and branding. If you have an idea or concept and need a creative solution or graphic design, you can email Alicia directly at Alicia, and that is ALICIA at basilblue.com. Or you can visit her website at www.basilblue.com. sculptor.com. And fun fact, Alicia actually designed the logo for Crafting a Revolution. So that is an example of the impeccable work you can expect if that is something you are in the market for. So be sure to look up Alicia again at her website, basilblue.com. All right, let's get back into the action.
So I do a lot of like commission work for other artists that are not, I guess, capable of doing it themselves. So
yeah, I mean, that's not necessary. To be honest, I wasn't even aware of that being a thing until, maybe 6 months ago with having another guest on.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Who shared that. I was like, really? Like, I thought kind of like if you're designing something as an artist, like you're making it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would think as well,
Yeah.
but apparently not. And I'm like, don't you feel like if I were an artist, I would have wanted to make it myself
Right.
and then I'd give it to someone, but I'm not complaining. I mean,
No.
I've had some amazing jobs for other artists, so that's really good.
And I want to, I guess I want to make sure that I'm defining some things the same. So when you say like sculpting, are you talking metal sculpture work, or are you talking other material mediums that you work with?
So I mean, sculpting is a very like broad
Yeah.
term for a lot of things. So I'm not sculpting in metal. I'm not sculpting in stone. I'm not sculpting in wood. It depends on the job. So I might be sculpting something in clay, for example, like either oil-based or water-based clay, and then make a mold of that, and then cast that in silicone or some polyurethane or something else. Or I might be like, what's really common in my job in particular is sculpting in styrofoam, because it's very lightweight, and that's mainly what people use on stage. Because it's super lightweight, it's super easy to work with. It doesn't need to last for 100 years.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very good material to work with. Like good and also not good, because it's a mess and disgusting.
Yes.
You can't. I mean, the price is just, it's so cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're doing things for other artists, what are some things you're working with there when you're helping them, I guess, realize their design?
What do you mean? Like,
are you doing sculpture work for them, or what kind of work are you helping other artists with?
So they're very different kind of like commissions, especially when it comes to artists. Some have like just a basic vague idea of what they want, which I find super weird, because in the end it's your work, right? It's your art. It's not, you should know what you want, right?
Yes.
But then they come to me and then they describe this idea and blah blah blah, and sometimes I have to make like a little sketch, or even like sculpt a small maquette or something, and then we will review that or something. And sometimes they come with a finished like 3D model on their computer, maybe, or just some drawings, or it's really different. But usually the stuff I do for artists is like overdimensional stuff, so it's like really really big, so it makes sense to have like a small model made first and then go from there and then make the bigger picture, I guess.
Yep. Is there
it's really hard to put it like in one or two sentences, because I do so many different things. It's like no project is the same.
Right.
Which is awesome. I love it. So.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of your favorite type of things to work on?
I think in the past like couple of years I started working with silicone more and more. So making molds and then casting something in silicon. And I love working with silicon just because of the feel of the material. So it's a total different medium to work with.
It is,
Because it's
yes.
flexible and you can, the painting techniques are very special, and but you get so much out of it. So that's really fun to work with. And I'm still at the very beginning to figure everything out, but I would love to do more. And I think the thing I enjoy the most is the animal fur type of thing. So
what are those being? I'm looking at some of them now on your Instagram. What are you making those for? Usually, is it the animal ones? Is that
so
going in? Are the animal ones like, what are those usually going into? Are they like movies or theater or just general
so
costumes?
there's the costumes for most part are I think so far they've all been for some kind of commercial advertisement stuff,
Okay.
or as a mascot for a company or something. I made a guinea pig hat a while ago. That was awesome, and it's like the mascot of some company. So it always pops up here and there, and that was really cool. Um, but there's also like there are the costumes, and then there are also the like the fake dummies, I guess you would
Mm-hmm.
call them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to replicate an animal that it's like laying dead on the street or something for a movie, but it has to look realistic. So
Do you ever stop and go like, huh? Like this is real. This is what I get to work on every day. Like I don't.
every day that
Every day.
thought comes to my mind every fucking day. It's like even when I just start researching stuff, it's like this is my life, really. No, it's amazing because it always leads you to the most absurd situations and stuff you would have never thought about before. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the part I love most about it. It's like no things are ever the same, and you get to learn a lot just by your job. So
So, okay. I'm gonna circle back to the learning part, but I have to ask this question. What's the strangest thing you've ever had to make?
oh. Now I have to think. Um, like design wise,
Mm-hmm.
I had to make, when was it, last year or the year before? I lost track of like time with all the
Yeah,
COVID stuff.
COVID stuff. Yeah, I know.
I
Like
had
it feels like 10 years ago, but it was
Yeah,
really
so
just
10 years ago, I was
yeah.
exactly. I had to make this giant pig-like creature, which with I think what I think that it was for an artist, and I've worked with him before, and the creature was called Piggy Growl or something. It was this massive plushie, with which like it was just it's hard to describe. You have to look it up on my website, I guess. But it's this massive, like over 2 meter tall pig head, stylized, and they had printed out like the front teeth of a tiger or something.
Okay.
And so it was this all like really cute big black eyes stuffed creature, and then it had this weird grin, and the whole head was sitting on something like a cushion, which was supposed to be its body, and had 3 meter long arms. And I mean, I loved every second of making it because it was it was fully made out of like flexible cushion foam. So I made like a little maquette and then developed what do you call it? The sewing pattern from that.
Oh.
So I had this giant pattern in my workshop laying out and then transferred that onto the foam and then glued the foam pieces together. And in the end, I had a 3-dimensional object. And coated that with the pink fabric. And inside the body and the hands, if you want to call it like that, or arms, were those tiny styrene beads. So it was just weird from start to finish, but I loved it. It was such a crazy idea. And I mean, that's the thing I love about it, because I myself figured out that I'm not a good designer at all. Like, I don't want to be an artist. But I love looking into other people's brains and into their ideas and then just execute them. So this job is perfect for me. I'm like, what do you want? You want an egg costume? Okay, I will make you an egg costume. Whatever the fuck you want with that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I gotta imagine. Like, I can totally imagine you being like a guest at a dinner party and somebody going, "What do you do for a living?" You're like, "Well, like last year I made this giant stuffed pig with tiger teeth."
Yeah, it's always weird. And I had situations where I made like dead animal dummies and had to travel with them in a suitcase to another country. I was like, oh, please, I want to get checked at the airport. It would be so funny. It never happened though.
Never happened.
But yeah. It's weird.
Okay, so I do want to ask about the learning. So yeah, when somebody's coming to you with, and you're talking about like all this kind of research, I would imagine, especially when you started out, like if they're coming to you and it needs some new technique, how are you learning about like how to do those things?
That's a good question. I taught myself a lot of stuff like via YouTube, I guess, but not by watching like particular channels or anything, but just picking up bits and pieces here and there. So even if I'm watching like the big maker channels, I guess, if you would call it like that, there's always something you can pick up for them. Even if you're not woodworking, you can still there's some hint that you can just grab and execute for yourself then. And yeah, it was just trial and error, I guess. So a lot there are like I mean, for example, with the silicon stuff, there's the Stan Winston School, which offers like in-depth courses of a lot of materials, and that was fun. And or just working in other people's workshops and then asking them, or it comes over time. I mean, it's a lot of knowledge about a ton of materials, so it's not just like one thing that I have to learn, but it's a lot of stuff. And I'm not particularly fond of like anything. I know a little about a lot, but I'm not like specialized in anything. So I would love to have the opportunity to learn more, but then again, every project is different. So
right. I mean, I guess like this question may seem odd, but it's like, how do you build in that experimentation time to a new project? Like, how do you build it in as a time factor? And then how do you cost? Like, how do you charge for, I mean, because essentially you're probably not for every job having to learn something new, but like if a new, like when you were just starting with the silicone, right? That might be a good example of like, that takes experimentation a lot of times, something like that. to really kind of dial into what will work for something?
Yeah, I'm most of the time the deadlines are very tight, so I'm taking on a lot of risk. And when I sign up for a job, I know that I'm putting myself in a risk. So like 9 times out of 10, in the end, I will cry in the workshop and just be overwhelmed with stress, I guess. But that's just the way it goes. Like I've never had it any different. And I would love to come to a point where, oh, actually not. I mean, I like the stress. It's like a positive kind of stress. I love working, and I don't mean to glorify that in any way. It's just what I do and who I am. But I like the pressure in that way. So, and I think I know what I am capable of, like at this point in time, and what I cannot do. So even if it's something that I have never tried before, like a particular technique or material or something, I know if I can pull it off or not. So,
hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodworkher on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. I'm going to assume, though, that took time to learn what you were like, what you felt confident in doing, even if it was something new versus something you don't feel confident in doing.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, I failed 1,000 times. So, but I also learned that most time the pressure I put on myself is like way higher than what the client expects from me. So, yeah, no, I'm making myself more pressure than I need to, but because other people, like, I mean, if friends look at my stuff, or people that have like nothing in depth to do with that, they always think it's great. They always like sugarcoat it, and I am very I don't know how to say it. I'm very neutral at looking at my work, I guess. So I can take a step aside and look at it from an outside but professional perspective and say if it's good or not. And most of the time, it's not up to my standards. So even though the client is happy and everything, I always am like, yeah, but it could have been better.
Yep.
Which comes down to the time factor, because like I'm usually like my deadlines are so tight that there's just not enough time, even if I would work 20 hours a day to make it more perfect. So it's the best of what I can achieve in that time frame, I guess.
Yeah. And I would say you're probably, even though you said you don't necessarily want to be an artist, I would say you're an artist at heart, in that sense that your own work never meets your own standards.
Yeah, but at the same time, I am not precious about anything that I do. So I'm not sad to see anything go out of the door. Like even if I worked for 3 months on it and I really love it, and the client paid for it, that's my job. It's gone, right? So that's probably what it's the difference between an artist and a crafter or whatever you may call it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not my like intellectual property that I'm giving away. It's just
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's weird because of course I want to be the job or the work to be acknowledged and appreciated in terms of like let it be credits in the movie or whatever.
Right.
That always feels amazing, of course, but usually I'm not the top person, like I'm working under someone, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the limelight person at all. I don't want to be on stage or something. So
right.
yeah.
Has there been a time where you weren't able to like get it to a point where the client was like, yes, that's great, I'm gonna just take it? Like, was there ever a time?
Oh yeah, several times.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I had several setbacks, of course.
How'd you handle that?
I still feel that every time because I mean, if I'm not satisfied, how do you sell it to the client as, hey, it's good. It happens, and then you have to bite through it, I guess, and never work with that person again. Or I mean, there have been both ways. There have been clients that I certainly will never work with again because they were assholes, and there are, I bet, a lot of people that never want to work with me again because either they found someone better or they just didn't like the work that I did, or it's just the way it goes. But I'm not too saddened about that. So I mean, after all these years, like I'm 100 years old. No, I mean, I currently am at a point where it's going on by itself, and I could eventually like pick my clients or pick my projects, and that's what I've been working so hard for the last years, to come to that point that I have basically more jobs than I can handle. So that's a very like comfortable position to be in. But I made a ton of sacrifices to get there. So
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, yeah, so if you're at that point, probably maybe now more so than before, talking about understanding your own skill sets, how often do you turn down work because it's something that falls outside that skill set?
That's hard to say. I mean, I often turn down work because I simply don't have the time for it, or the budget is too low. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff that I simply can't do. I mean, if they're asking for like a full animatronic dinosaur that's walking by itself, I'm like, sorry, I don't do animatronics. I have no idea how this stuff works. But I can also always like refer them to people that can do the stuff, and then maybe we find a way to collaborate on that. So one does the sculpting part and one does the other part or whatever. But yeah, it's a hard question to answer, I guess. And I mean, I'm what I said about I'm in the position that I can pick my projects and clients. I'm saying that now, but I'm also very aware of that it doesn't have to stay that way. So that's just like the current state.
Yeah.
I also know that maybe in 6 months no one would call me anymore, and I don't have any job. So I'm pretty aware of that. You never know what's coming next. There's no stability at all. It's like, okay, let's see.
How do you balance that with like, well, it's something you love to do, yet it's, to your point, no stability there?
I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I'm pretty good at I would say I'm fairly good at managing my finances in a way that I have enough on my bank account that I could survive a couple of months even without jobs. So I choose the stability within the uncertainty, I guess, in a way that I try to make sure I have enough backup that I can support myself. And also, if everything goes to shit and I don't know, the next pandemic hits and we're all jobless and no one wants to see movies anymore, I wouldn't be too precious about just taking on a regular job and working as a cashier in the next hardware store. I guess it's that. Yeah. It's like the working or this job is not everything. I think there's like so much more in life. I mean, I love that I'm able to do that, and that that I got to the point where I can support myself, and I'm very independent from everyone. And but I also know that this doesn't have to last forever, and it's okay, right? So I will keep on doing it for as long as I can, but I also, as I said, I wouldn't mind like going back to a regular job, I guess, like a normal job, and just do that as a hobby on the side, because at the moment I don't have any time to do my own projects. So always that balance of making your hobby into a job, I guess.
I mean, what are some things that are like your projects that you don't have time to do right now?
Well, I always I have a list of stuff that I want to make. There are so many things that I want to try out, and I want to get in depth into like certain materials or techniques or something that I just don't have the time right now to practice. I have like one costume laying around for about a year now, which I hope to finish this year because it's very like precious to my heart, and I just want to see it come to life. And but I try to make time for certain personal projects. So for example, last year I did a little charity project that I really wanted to pull off, which I delayed for a year as well. I wanted to do it the year before, but then stuff happened, and so I managed to do it last year, and that was a success. But yeah, it doesn't always work out.
Yep. Do you talked about Berlin being like a very kind of creative area? So do you have like other people in your friend circle that's like does something similar or has a creative career as well?
Oh yeah, a lot of people. I mean, since I am here, like my main like circle of friends, they are all more or less in the creative fields. So there are a lot of like professional musicians and I don't know, 3D artists or whatever, like all the kinds. And we are all connected in a way that I also know like most of the people that do the same as me. Like it's just within the scene, I guess, if you want to call it like that, you know each other, and you know that if you have a job that you can do, who to call, and so yeah.
So you built this business essentially on word of mouth before social media was big. Now you have social media, obviously. That's how I got connected with you, was Instagram. But I guess what role do you see that social media plays kind of in your work or just in general with your life?
I mean, I have to say that I have been on Instagram, for example, with just a private profile for, I don't know, 7 years or something. And back then it was the basic, I don't know, post your lunch picture kind of thing, with those weird filters, and yeah, it looked like shit, but I think that's how Instagram started.
Yes.
And I mean, before that it was Facebook. And I had a website. I think since I started the business, I had a website. So that was always good to refer to just as a portfolio. And I mean, what I love about Instagram is it's easy access. It's changed over the years as well. It was much nicer like a few years ago, without all the weird algorithm stuff. And when it was still chronological, that was nice. So you could just scroll through and just get to a point where like, oh yeah, I've seen that before, and then you were up to date.
Right.
But that's not a thing anymore. But it's a good way to connect to people and to interact with people, and just I think it somehow replaced the classic website to a certain extent, because everyone's on Instagram, so they will just search for your name and then they have your portfolio in front of them. So I use this business account, if you want to call it like that, like solely for portfolio reason, to show up stuff that I've made. I like rarely ever post any personal stuff on there, because it's just I don't think it's the place for that. And if it's like a public profile, I don't want to like get myself out like that. So I think it's good. I don't know where it will lead to, and I will probably I don't want to jump on every trend, so I don't want to make TikTok videos and stuff like that. It's just not my kind of field, I guess. Also with YouTube videos, I mean, I know I have a lot of friends who do YouTube videos as well, and some of them also for a living, like Laura, for example. And I just know that this is not my area that I want to expose myself in. So yeah, I love to share my knowledge and stuff that I made with other people, but I don't want to put my face out there like this and be a YouTuber and explain things. That stresses me out too much. I don't feel comfortable in that.
Well, and you don't have to, right? I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the building the business the way you did, on essentially word of mouth. Like, you don't have to have those things to bring clients in.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's always about finding out what you yourself feel comfortable doing, and also what you don't feel comfortable in doing. And I know that I don't feel comfortable in standing in front of a camera and like explaining stuff or filming myself working. I love working by myself with like no one watching and have my own pace, and that's the beauty of being a freelancer. And I mean, I work at the most absurd times a day, so I found out that I'm actually really comfortable in getting up at 5 a.m. and start working, and other people are more comfortable at working at night. And of course that sounds much cooler, but that's not who I am, unfortunately. I like the daylight, and I need the daylight, and I get tired at night, so
yes, whatever works best. Like, I'm a night owl, but I am definitely not a morning person. But little kids will make you a morning person whether you want to be or not.
I guess, yeah.
No matter how early or late they go to bed, they're still up by 6 a.m. Damn it. Well, I'm paying attention to our time, so I do want to give you a chance, though, to let people know all the different ways that they can find you and follow along with you, and all the crazy things that come your way.
Yeah, as I said, the best place to follow me, though, if you are on Instagram, is my Instagram account, which is Karoline with K and E, and Hinz, which is Hinz, so all written together. Karoline Hinz. And my website is the same, just .com. So I have a few YouTube videos if you search for them, but it's mainly just a bear dancing and not much else.
Not much else. Okay. Well, I'll definitely include links for the Instagram and website in the show notes so people can find you and, again, see all the cool things you get to work on. And thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast. I'm really honored because I really appreciate all the work that you put into.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Again, that was Karoline from Germany who joined us today. And I'll include the links on how you can follow along with her and see all the amazing pieces she's coming up with in the show notes for today's episode. So you can find those in the description for today's episode on whatever podcast app you're listening on, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just look in the description down below for those links. Also, you can find every episode of the podcast from even before it was called Crafting a Revolution. You can find every episode of the podcast over at freemanfurnishings.com/podcast. Super easy. So if you enjoyed today's episode and really want to help the podcast out, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, share about it with a friend, head on over to iTunes. Definitely head on over to iTunes. Leave a 5-star review. Say what you love about the podcast. That helps more people find out about the podcast and get to hear the amazing stories and journeys of these makers. When I'm not making podcasts, you can find me designing and making furniture and other home decor over at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings across all the social media. I'm active on a daily basis, though, over on Instagram and TikTok at Freeman Furnishings. And that's where you can see my latest shenanigans and what I happen to be building on the bench at the moment. All right, we're at the end of our week, going into a weekend. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And as always, let's craft a revolution.
Got something they wanna say. Solution for the toxic masculinities. Pollution is the constant evolution of a broken institution. So here's our resolution. We're crafting a revolution.